And what I'm going to do is start off with Meshmixer, of course. I'm going to open it up. And if you remember you should have all been here for Meshmixer 1. And what I've got here is the result of the demonstration I did, which was an elephant with an eagle's head and with wings. And we proved that this was a solid 3D printable object. And we call it watertight in a sense. And that means that when we've actually put the head of the eagle onto the elephant, we've not just kind of placed them in position, we've actually combined them in a way that this is one object. And in that sense, it can be sent to a machine and be printed. When we actually go to Thingiverse and we take files, sometimes you find that they're not actually watertight files, and we can't really have the same functionality. And I'm going to go into that problem later. About halfway through, we're going to look at those issues and how to fix them. So this is kind of the kind of thing that we'll be working with. Now, I've sent everybody, or rather Ellie has sent everybody, the file, the original file for the elephant, for the wings, and for the eagle, the whole eagle. We're going to use those together in the first part of this session. And I'm just going to refer actually to my lesson plan here. It's going to be in 3 parts. The first part, we're just going to go on to Meshmixer and we're going to look at how it works. The second part, we're going to work together using the 3 files that have been sent to you. There's an eagle, an elephant, and some wings. And if we all start with the same files, then hopefully we shouldn't have an issue with any problems that we might find when we're using other files that come in with a whole host of problems. Once we've done that, we're going to have a bit of a break. And then later on, we're going to finish off with a task, a group task, where you're going to bring in anything you like, any object, anything you would wish to combine. And then you will actually do the thing yourself, with me taking more of a supportive role rather than a kind of leading role. Any questions you have, I'll do my best to answer them, any problems you have. And that'll be about the 2 hours, I think, split into those 3 sections. So first and foremost, I'm going to go to the top here and just remind myself, introduction to session, model file, resources, and so on, and Thingiverse. So let's have a look at Thingiverse. I'm just going to minimize this. So we're back here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a new model, basically. I could either shut this down completely or just import something new. I think what I might do is just close it down completely and start again, just by opening Meshmixer, so that we're all at the same point. So now what we've got here is a little plus where we can import things, and we've also got a little import bunny. So what I'm going to do first is just go online and open up a quick search on Thingiverse, just to remind you. And all I've got to do is type in the first part, and there's Thingiverse there. And as I mentioned in workshop 1, you don't have to do this at the moment, but you can do if you wish. But this is for later on in the session. You can download whatever you want. And Thingiverse is a library. As I say, the elephant I'm going to show you now, you've already got sent to you by Ellie. If you find it difficult to download and to open up onto your machine, then you can follow me and you can download the elephant yourself. And all I'm going to do is go to the search box at the top here and type in elephant. As I say, this has already been sent to you, so you don't have to do this. I'm going to press OK there, or enter there, and it's going to show me all the elephants on Thingiverse. And I know the one that I looked for was actually on page 2, so I'm going to scroll all the way down through all of this, and you can see the pages at the bottom there. So I'm going to click on 2, and I'll go down, looking at our second lot of elephants, and it should be here. And there he is. He's upside down. And this is the elephant that I think is really good to work with, because it's a low resolution image, but it still looks quite good. And when I say resolution, it's the amount of triangles within it. So I'm going to select it. What we've got to do is click on the picture of it, really. And hopefully we get this. And it says download all files on the top there. It really is quite simple. I'm going to left click on download all files, and then just check out what happens on the bottom left of my screen. I should point out as well that I'm working on a PC, so Macs might be different, but you'll know your own Mac and you'll be able to find those files. What I tend to do is pop these straight onto my desktop rather than look through downloads and things. It's only because I get confused sometimes and I prefer it to actually be where I can find it. So I'm just going to minimize this screen and simply grab this elephant here down the bottom, the zip file, left click and drag, and I can place it onto my desktop. And there it is, elephant. I'll just reduce this a second and open up my zip file. Now a zip file, it's quite odd really. If you go and search in a download to try and open something, it doesn't see it for some reason. You've got to actually take your file and open the file before the software can see it. So I'm going to go into this now, into the zip file, and we can see the top one says files. If I open that, inside there should be our actual document. So this is a file of an elephant that we've just downloaded. And again, I'm going to grab that and drag that onto my desktop. Okay, now I've already got one on there, so I'm just going to say replace. And there we have our elephant file. Right, so I'm going to close that down. And we have an elephant file now that we've just taken out of our zip file. So what we can do now is bring that into Meshmixer and import it. I'm not going to do that just yet though, because what I'd like us to do is just have a look at Meshmixer itself. I'm just going to enlarge this. And we're going to have a look around the functionality within Meshmixer and have a bit of a play with it as well before we start kind of bringing things in. Notice that we've got 6 boxes in the middle, and one of them is import bunny. It's something that comes with Meshmixer as a starting point, and they use it for training, I suppose. So just click on import bunny. I'm left clicking on a PC, and there we have it immediately. The reason why it's so quick and opens up so quick is it's a very low resolution object. You can see there isn't a great deal of detail in this, but we have our bunny rabbit. Now I'm just going to stop for a second and ask everybody if you're still with me, to give everyone a chance to be able to get to the point where we've got our rabbit in front of us. If I don't hear anything in the next few seconds, I'll carry on. But I really don't want anyone to...
Yeah, I've got the rabbit. Don't know how to turn it round, but I've got the rabbit.
Okay, so that's a really good thing. Thank you very much. I'm working on a PC, as I say. So the first thing I'm going to point out is the box in the top corner here. It's like Fusion 360 if you've done any Fusion work with me. If I go over to this box, left click on it and drag, I can move it around. And I'm just moving my mouse now. Also, if you forget the box completely and right click and move, the same thing happens, but you've got a little bit more control over it. It disappears here, by the way, because we're going underneath the bed that it sat on. Because it actually puts it onto a box, a MakerBot, which is a 3D printer. So it's almost like it's been placed into a 3D printer virtual space. But you can get around that, no problem, because what I tend to do is move it and make it higher away from the box if you want to get underneath it and so on. So just right click and move around. I'm using a PC again, so I'm going to use the mouse to scroll in and out. And I think I can probably grab and move. What I'm doing now is I'm pressing down the wheel on my mouse and dragging. So with the PC, we've got press the wheel and drag to pan. Right click and move to revolve, and then we can use the wheel to go in and out. So if I want to make it go further down, I'll just pan down and pan around, right click, and so on. Now with a Mac, I don't use a Mac myself, but you'll have similar things, similar functionality to be able to move around. So there's our rabbit. So the next thing I want to do is basically show you a few of the functions within Meshmixer. And I think the first thing we'll do is we'll select our sculpture tools. And these are tools where we can make changes to our object. Now with Fusion 360, And with a lot of CAD systems, it's very nuts and bolts. It's very kind of mathematical, where you put in numbers and lines and so on. This is more like sculpture. This is a little bit more like a piece of clay in front of us that we can manipulate in certain ways. So what I'm going to do, and you can follow me, I'm going to go to Sculpt, which is the 4th icon down. I'm going to left click on that, and we get this drop down menu. Now in that menu, we've got a series of sliders here. One is strength and the other one is size. This is quite interesting, actually. You can see I've got a ball tool that's appeared as I move around our tool. And if I make my size bigger, around our model, I should say, the ball is bigger. Let's make it a lot bigger so you can see what I mean. A really big one there. Or we can make it a lot smaller, that size. And we've got a tiny little ball. So what I'm going to do, make it about halfway so we can see it there. Our strength, I'm going to put it about halfway as well. And then what I'm going to do is go up to brushes, the top one here, and it automatically opens this series of tools. And it's really quite simple. This one will drag to a point. So we'll draw out, it's not quite so pointed. We've got a flat tool there, which will put a flat on, and an inflate, so that'll kind of blow it up. And I think one of the most important ones I've got here is this robust smooth here that I use a lot as well. So let's go to inflate. It's the second one down here. I'm going to left click on that, and I'm simply going to left click and drag, and you can see what happens. I'm kind of inflating, and if you drag out, you can see it moves as well to different points. And so we can inflate parts of our model, like so. I'm just right clicking and moving as well. And if you don't like what you've done, Control Z, like everything else, will actually take them back and undo. Just incidentally, if you use the same tool, we've got that inflate. I'm going to try and see what happens when I press Control and do the same thing. Can you see what happens now? It's actually pushing the opposite way. So we've actually already got some quite considerable tools here, and pressing Control on a PC will actually make it go the opposite way. Let's just do that again. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and I might actually make my tool size smaller. So I'm going to go to size, reduce that size. You can see it's really quite small now. So I can kind of press Control and I'll dig in wherever I put my, and that, I've got a job coming up soon and I wasn't quite sure how to do it. And now I do. And we can start to decorate that way. We can also, I'm not pressing Control this time, we can have these lumps coming out. And notice that as I move around, it's actually moving around the surface quite freely. So it does actually pan around. You'll be able to see what I mean if I go a little bit bigger. You can see it kind of moving around the other side, so I can put one there. Our strength, by the way, if I turn it right down and go to this point, you can see it doesn't actually go that far that quickly. So we've got a little bit of sensitivity around this as well. Let's turn the strength right up to maximum, and you can see it just goes really quickly. So we've got an awful lot of kind of functionality within one tool only. Let's have a look at another tool now. I'm going to stop for a second.
Ian, before you do that, yeah, sorry, Ian, we've got a question. Just want to make sure that's all right. When you want to undo what you've just done, that's Control Z, is it?
Yeah, I'm going to do that now. I'm going to press Control on my keyboard. I'm pressing Control now, and now I'm pressing Z, and it's just disappeared. I'll do that a number of times. Control Z, and so on. I quite like the middle bit, so I'm going to leave that. I mean, I have to say, I've got a job to do, and I don't know if you can see this, but I've got to make this in CAD. And there's no way that I'll try and make this in Fusion or in Rhino or in standard CAD things. But certainly this Meshmixer would be a perfect thing to make something like that with. So let's have a look at another tool, shall we? I'm just going to go to brushes. And don't forget, we can have a play with this later on. I'm going to give you a few minutes to have a play with this in a minute, actually. I'm just going to show you one or two of the other tools. I'm going to go to the drag there. I've got quite a big tool at the moment, and the strength is in the middle. It's a good idea to start in the middle. We can change it. And I'm going to drag out. And what I've done there is I've left clicked and moved my tool very, very quickly. Let's see if I can do it quicker. And you can get all of this happening as well. So that's the drag. If I now change my size, I'm going to Control Z back actually. Back again. I change my size right down and probably change the strength a little bit as well. I can probably get something a little bit finer. As you can see. So a really quick and easy way of making things that can be, and it's have an effect on it as I'm dragging as well. So it's not great to kind of just do it without actually zooming in and see what you can see, because it's just dragging the whole thing around. So I'm just going to take that back a little bit. I was just a little bit too quick with that. It might be better for me in this case, rather than dragging from there, is make a long one and then take things off it. That would probably work better. So again, I'm just going back. But you can see the point, can't you? For sculpture, it's really quick and easy. I'm just going to make my size a little bigger. And this time I'm going to move around. If there's anybody at the moment working on a trackpad, please, if you have got a mouse, it's worth digging one out and use a mouse, because CAD really relies on the difference between left and right click and that kind of thing. And having a mouse as well allows you a little bit more functionality as we're working. If you don't have a mouse, not a problem. Do your best with the trackpad, but just be aware in future that having a mouse would be better, I would think. Right, so we've got quite a few sculpture tools here. Let's have a look at a few others. I'm going to go into my brushes. I'm going to go to the flatten here. Now the flatten tool depends on where our, I'm just making my size further up as well. Depends on where our tool is on our body. We can move around and you can see it's moving around the side. So I can flatten that part. I can move around, I can flatten the top of the head, and I can come around and flatten that part as well. And the angle is dependent on where this circle is. I can take my strength right up and my size right up, and I can really have an effect on that, as you can see. I can also move around as I'm working. So really now what we've got is something that is very much akin to modeling in clay. Let's have another look at one of these brushes. I think the smooth is quite an interesting one for fixing any kind of problems, but we'll come into that later, I think. What I'd like you to do is just have a little play for the next few minutes with any of these tools and change the strength and change the size. And I'm actually just going to give you, say, 2 minutes or so. Just have a little play on this. Try actually going in and out by changing, by pressing Control on a PC or Command. And you'll find that if I go to this drag now and drag it out, it's a little bit too wide, that. So I'm going to make my size smaller. Control Z back out. You can see it goes out there. What happens when I control? You can see I can go in, but there'll be an actual long kind of divot inside there now, as you can see. So just pressing Control on a PC or Command on a Mac will do that. So feel free to have a little play right now. Ah, look at this. I've just realized that our tools can have different shapes. So I'm going to go for, let's go to our brush first. I'm wondering if that's the case. Let's go to the fallout there and see if we can go to a point. Ah, that's interesting. So we can draw with a point. We can draw with a flat. Ah, that's interesting. I wasn't expecting that at all. So this fallout I've never used before. There's a kind of rounded one there as well. So we can move around. If we stay there, it will actually just produce one thing, but we can draw with it as well. Again, depending on the strength and size. And I'll be very honest with you, I haven't really experimented with these before, because what I've done mostly is bring in other files and kind of adapted them. So quite pleased with that, actually, that we've learned something new there. Okay, so with my rabbit, I'm hoping that you've all had a bit of a chance to play. kind of a rough rabbit shape there. What I'm going to do now is have a look at select, which is the next one down from. We got the plus, we've got mesh mix, which we'll go into in a minute, and then we've got select. So I'm going to left click on select. Okay, now we've got a choice when we select is having our circle that we had before, our circle tool, which we can make bigger. So I can select now an area just by pressing. I can also move around. And notice as we have selected that this mesh is made of triangles, and I can see those triangles here. And what we can do once we've selected that is we can just press delete on our keyboard. So there's delete, and we can see inside our rabbit now. This rabbit is no longer 3D printable because I've made a hole in it, and it no longer, oh, by the way, it's actually trying to select the bottom here, so I may actually clear that selection, the bottom, to come out of the selection part. So whatever I've just grabbed there has now been removed. It looks like the bottom's removed as well, but it's not. It's because the bottom of the rabbit is underneath the plate that it sat on. But basically, we've now made this into a unwatertight model. It's not watertight anymore. It's not complete. So we can't send it to a 3D printer because this surface doesn't actually have a thickness in the real world. It needs to be a solid, and it needs to be a watertight solid for it to be recognized by a 3D printer. So what we can do is I'm simply going to go back and press Control Z until it's back again. And instead of delete, we can actually delete and fill. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the head of our rabbit, and we can do that using our kind of select tool, or there's a different kind of tool as well. If we clear our selection and we go to,
just a quick one. How did you remove the orange part?
A clear selection. When the box is there, at the bottom of the box is this word that says clear selection. So I just left clicked on that and it disappeared. Okay. This time I'm going to go to the same select, but notice that we've got either this circle, which is actually a brush, it says at the top here. If we click the little kind of slider at the top there, it now changes to a lasso. And the lasso I find quite problematic. I'm going to left click and take my finger off it and then move, and you can see a line has been produced. So I'm going to left click again and move again, and I'm actually going to go around the bit that I want to take off. I'm going to go straight across there and then come back again. And once I've done that, the whole head has now been selected. Now you can actually use the, you can see I'm drawing again. I shouldn't have moved it because as I moved it, it changed my selection. So I'm going to clear that selection and do that again. But I'm going to get into a position where I can see correctly where I'm going to remove the head. I'm going to go back to select. And again, I'm going to just hit that slider so it's now lasso instead of brush. And away from the model, I'm just going to left click and move. Left click again. I'm going to draw around the bit that I want to remove. Straight through there and back. And it's selected the whole head. At that point, we can either delete, in which case we know there's going to be a hole. But in this case, what I want to do is go to the box that has appeared here, and at the bottom is clear selection. At the top is edit. The very first one across from there is erase and fill. So we're going to left click on erase and fill. And what we've got is the head is removed, but it's actually filled it. But it's also, and I can move this around slightly so we can see, it's also given us this bulge, which we can actually move around at this point. You can see at the bottom there's a bulge slider. Look what happens when I kind of bring that in. Now we don't want sharp edges on our models if we're going to put a new head on it, for instance. We want a kind of a bulge on it. So something like that, to me, would probably be quite good. Like so. A little bit more would be better. That would probably be the best option because it's a smooth kind of finish. I'm purposely going to give myself a bit of a problem though. And then once you're happy with it, just hit accept. And then, like before, to move away and get rid of that kind of brown color, at the bottom of the box there is clear selection. I'm going to left click on clear selection. And now we've got our watertight model ready for 3D printing. But of course, I kind of purposely had a problem here that I can use a sculpt tool to help me with. I purposely put these angles on. I didn't need to. I could have kept that roundness to it. What I'm going to do here is go to sculpt again, go to brushes, and that really handy tool I mentioned before, the robust smooth, which is down here. I'm going to click on that, make my size a little bit smaller, so it's about the right size for what I want. Look what happens when I just move around. It's smoothing beautifully around there. I'm going to move my model, come around the side here, and everywhere I move my cursor, it's smoothing everything down. Because if you do have an issue with a very sharp kind of point here, if we're not careful, we get problems with 3D printing where one side goes through the other side, and it is really easy to get these problems. And when you download things from Thingiverse, sometimes they have these faults. Quite often they have these faults in them. So we can't rely on them being good files. We may have to fix them ourselves. One of the best tools for fixing things is this robust smooth, which can just smooth everything over like so, depending again on the strength and the size of our tool. So there we have it. Our poor old bunny with no head. Okay, so we can bring in a head of an eagle, for instance. We can bring anything out. We can put it together and combine. And I think what we've done is we've kind of abused our bunny long enough, I think. We'll now bring in a file, which is the elephant file that I downloaded from Thingiverse. But you should have been sent that as well. Ellie sent that out earlier today. So you should have an email with that file as well. So hopefully you've already got access to that. You know where it is on your computer. So we're going to open that elephant up in Meshmixer. And it's really easy to do. We just go straight up to the top corner, file. Yeah.
Just before you do that, we've got a question from Martine, who's trying to remove the rabbit head, but when she does that, she just ends up with the head. Is that all right, Martine? So you lose the body instead of losing the head?
Yeah, I think that's all to do with what you've drawn around. So if I want to, let's see if I can go back. It might take me quite a while to do this. Let's see what I'm doing here. I think it's just a case of, I'll show you now actually, it might be better for me to demonstrate this. If I go to select, okay, and I go to my lasso here, and I'm selecting, if I select the whole body, that's what's going to disappear. If I select, let's clear the selection, if I select the top where the head was, that's what's going to disappear. If for some reason there's been an issue there, it could be something to do with the selection tool that we're using. I'm not quite sure. Or let me just check something. I'm going to go into this box. I'm going to go to lasso again. And I'm going to go through here. So I've just done the top part again. And I want to remove that. Let's go to erase and fill. Okay. I'm just looking to see if there was something that we would be able to flip and remove the other thing. I'm guessing at the moment that it's just a case of we've drawn around the body rather than drawn around the head. I'm not sure. Could you answer that?
Yeah, no, I did draw around the head. That's what I couldn't understand. I've done it twice and the same thing happened.
The same thing.
Don't worry, I'll practice.
I think I don't want to leave you hanging here because that's going to be a problem later on. I'd like to look into this just a little bit. It could well be when we pick selection, there may be a kind of a flip. So it's selecting the opposite, perhaps. I'm not quite sure, but a lot of these things do have little issues. So I'm just going to do it one more time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start again. I'm going to go to File and Import Bunny. And now this is really important. We could either bring the input bunny in as well and append. That means bringing two in together. That's important for us because we're going to bring in multiple things to the same thing. But I don't want to do that. I want to replace. So if I hit replace, that's going to be replaced with a new bunny. What I'm going to do now is just see if I can spot the reason why it would do it the opposite way. So I'm going to go to select, okay, and have a look at this as well, and the modes and so on. It's not allowing me to change that anyway. Layer brush, let's go to lasso now, select my head by, and I take it you got through this part okay?
Yeah.
The head itself went brown?
No, it didn't. It went the opposite way when I clicked.
So the opposite part is going brown?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's the way that we're selecting them, because what I can do is I started off the model, if you remember.
Yeah.
If I clear that selection and do it again, I think I might be able to find out the reason. And we leave it on lasso, but I go straight through. Can you see that the body has now become brown?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Almost immediately. And that's the reason why I said we have to be careful when we start. If we start on the object, it will immediately cut its own line through it. So I'm going to clear that and do it one more time. And I think this must be the issue. I'm going to go back to lasso and I'm going to start well away from the head, well away from the model itself. And I'm starting my drawing well away from the bunny rabbit and only come through at this point all the way through and then up. And I've got my head.
Okay, I'll try that. Thanks.
That should be the issue, I think. Don't go straight through the rabbit. Make a few clicks around the top and then come around. That should work for you. And then, of course, we can edit, erase and fill. And there's our rabbit. Right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to File and Import. And this time I'm going to replace and look for the elephant. Now, I've already got it, if you remember, I brought it out from Thingiverse, but we've sent that to you as well. So you should have this elephant file. I'm going to left click on that and click open. And immediately we get our upside down elephant. Okay. And there we have it. And what I'm going to do, I think, is I'm just going to, during this session, use some Meshmixer objects to combine to show the principles of this, and that way the person that had difficulty removing heads and things has got some easy things to combine and to make into objects that they can then put onto other things later on. Right, so we've got our elephant. First thing we want to do is transform. Now, transform means change. So we can change scale, we can change by rotating, by moving, and all sorts. And it's really easy to do. We find edit, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 one down, and left click on that. And it opens up a lot of tools to edit our object. And the one we're looking for is transform. It's the third one down. So I'm going to left click on that. And we get this kind of circle with some lines and so on. And of course, the straight lines, the arrows, are simply direction. I can left click and drag that and it goes up in the air. I can pan out and I can go a little bit higher. And I can pan down and move in again. Of course, I want to turn my elephant round. So we've got this red kind of curve there. If I left click on that and move, you can see at the same time, it moves around. And I found that to make it accurate as 183rd is quite difficult. So I move my mouse right the way away from that, and I've got more accuracy as I move around. So I can make that 180.17. That's near enough for now, just to move that around. Because when we bring it into our 3D print environment, it automatically makes it flat anyway. So I'm happy with that. Just to show that as we move around, we've got other kind of tools. We've got this blue one to rotate in that direction, and I can rotate up and then Control Z back down again. And we've got another one as well. We've got a green one somewhere. If we move around, we'll probably find a green one, and there it is. We have to go down, and we can revolve around in that direction as well. So we can move our object about, that's fine. We can also make it bigger and smaller, scale it. And to do that, there's a box, a little white box in the middle there. I'm going to left click on that little white box and then drag away from it. You can see it makes the whole thing bigger and smaller. So we'll keep it kind of in the middle there, like so. Also, we have different types of scale. We can scale in one dimension. There's the center box there that we can move the whole thing at. We can actually see there's a box at the end of the red arrow, which we can left click and drag as well. And we can just drag it in one direction, which is very handy when we're trying to put a head of something on the body of something else. If the head's too wide, we can simply kind of squish it, if you know what I mean. So the functionality is really quite nice and really quite intuitive. I'm just going to go back off there. And we're just having a look around. Okay. So we can do exactly the same to our elephant as we did to our bunny rabbit. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove the head. And of course, this is going to be an issue if you're on trackpad. So please don't worry about this. I'm going to actually give you two objects to combine in a bit. So unfortunately, this will be more of a demonstration for one or two of you, but hopefully the rest of you with a mouse will be able to do this. We're going to try and cut the head off this elephant. And that means getting it in the right position so we can draw around past the ears and then straight across here, then back out again. So I'm going to do that very slowly. I'm going to go to, oh, we need to accept the transform, by the way. Whatever we've done with our transform, we need to hit accept. And then we're back into the kind of making area. So I'm going to go to select. Oh, by the way, a good way around, if you're having problems with the line, shouldn't we mention, what we can do is leave it as brush, make our brush quite big. So what we can do for the person who did have difficulty there with the line is we can just basically paint what we want to remove. Of course, it's only painted from one side, so we've got to be really careful that we turn around and continuously paint all the way. It's a bit tricky, but it is another way around. I find it a lot easier to use the line. So I'm going to change it to a lasso, and I'm simply going to draw a line. Is that working? Yes. Let's start again from scratch then. Now we're one line. There we go. I'm working now. So I'm going to come round. It can be a bit glitchy, this. I'm going to go through the center of this area here, straight across, back out to there. And of course, what I've got now is I've got the head of my elephant. And of course, I kept it on there as I was trying to move it. I shouldn't move it. I'm going to do that one more time. I'm going to go to clear selection. I'm just going to trust myself that it's right. I'm going to get it correct here. That's better. Go to select, change to lasso, and again, put my lines around, making sure I've cleared everything. Straight across there, and then back out. And then rather than trying to move, it hasn't worked that for some reason. I haven't really got that together. So I'm going to kind of Control Z out of that and start again from scratch. Lasso. Let's see if this works. I'll say it can be a bit glitchy, this. Be a little bit more careful when I come back to that point. And there you have it. I've managed to select everything from that part. And then before I do anything, I'm not going to try and move it or anything because you can see it just goes off and does what it wants to do. So I'm going to go to Edit now and hit Erase and Fill. And there's our elephant with the head taken off. And I'm going to accept that as it is without making any changes because the bulge is right for me. So I'm going to hit Accept. And what we've got now, if we clear our selection, is our object. If I can scroll in here, can you see this little triangle here? I've got to move that around a little bit so we can all see it. There's an issue. Remember I said about sometimes you get a bit of an issue in the corner here? That's worth fixing now. And the way I'm going to fix it, of course, is with that tool I mentioned, that really handy one, which is the Robust Smooth. So I'm going to go to Sculpt, go to Brushes, and find Robust Smooth. My ball is far too big here. I'm going to make the ball smaller and bring the strength down as well, because I only need to hit it just tiny little hit there very, very quickly, and it, as I move around, solves those issues. So while I'm at it, I'm just going to move around and just check that everything's okay. And it might actually be worth smoothing around the whole thing anyway. And I can see something just appeared on the side there, a little rip in the surface. Just checking everything there, and everything seems okay there. Kind of zoom out. And this is why kind of panning and zoom in and moving in and out at the same time is really handy. Have a quick look underneath, make sure, and everything seems okay there. Okay, I might actually get rid of that ridge as well. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit there and then make my size bigger and strength a little bit bigger as well, and just kind of move around there, and you can see that ridge disappears. Another little bit there, and we just move the whole thing over there. So that's the first part. That's great. Okay, so I'm just going to check now my scheme of work, or my lesson plan, I should say. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to import, but instead of replace, we're going to go to append, and we're going to bring the eagle file. Now that eagle file, when it came in from Thingiverse, was too big and it crashed Meshmixer every time. So what I had to do was reduce the mesh. And when I reduced the mesh, again, Meshmixer crashed. So I've already pre-prepared this. It's got thousands, tens of thousands of triangles in it. Far too many triangles. Our bunny only had a small amount. This has a massive amount. So I've already halved the amount of triangles. It's still the same size, but the file size is half. So we should be able to have a manageable file to work with. So I'm going to go to File, and we're going to go to Import. Now, really important here, we're not replacing our elephant body. We're going to append. So if you left click on append, then we're actually going to look for the eagle that we've had pre-prepared. So I'm going down now, looking for my eagle. And it should be, there it is, reduce mesh eagle there. I'm going to open that, and it should appear next to my model. It says it's much larger than the rest. Would you like Meshmixer to try and automatically repair this? I could say yes, but I'm going to say no and see what happens. And we'll see where it is, and there it is. It's just a lot bigger, that's all. But I can resolve that myself. And as we look around, we can see our head is actually in the same position as our, I'm going to zoom out a little bit there and pan. Now, what you'll probably find is that this is now quite laggy. It's really quite difficult to move around. We've also got this browser that's appeared, which I'm going to move to the right-hand side. And at the moment, our eagle is live. So whatever we do will be done to this eagle. We can actually select the elephant, and the elephant is live now. What I'm going to do, I think, is move the eagle to start with. So I'm going to go to eagle. We're going to go to transform now, because I just want to move it slightly out of the way so I can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to go to edit and transform while the eagle is selected. So we've got to transform now, and we've got that same set of tools that we can slide and move to our heart's content. And I'm just going to move it up to that point. Now, I don't think that removing the head is going to be as easy with this because it's such a complicated file. I'm going to accept that transform. So we're back out of it. And we'll see if we can do the same thing by removing the head. If it doesn't work, don't panic, because there's another thing we can do. I kind of zoom in a little bit now. But I actually want to select everything except for the head, don't I? So I'm going to kind of go out a little bit and then back in here. Now let's see if we can do this. It might be a bit problematic, but we'll try. Let's go to select. And we're going to go to that same lasso. And I'm going to start from the side, go all the way down, all the way across here, and simply across. I think I'll go down first and then back out again, like so. And I'm going to wait because it is lagging, okay? And I'm going to try and delete this and fill it, and let's see if it works. If it doesn't work, then there is another way around it. As I say, I'm going to go to erase and fill and hit that and wait, because this is the kind of thing that I'm talking about. And there we have it. It's worked. I'm really pleased with that. The bulge is too big, so I'm just going to reduce that bulge slightly. And what we've done is we've got rid of most of the problem as well. It's actually gone back there as I've moved off, so I'm just going to take that back. Visually, I don't want it too big, about there maybe. And then I'm going to hit accept to say that that is done. And then I can clear the selection, like so. Now, my computer, the fans came on massively there. So I'm expecting one or two of you to have had problems with that, with lagging. So what I'm going to do is use my robust smooth to go around the edge there to clean it up. And I'm waiting actually for you guys just to let me know if you've had a problem getting to this stage. I'd like us all to be at this stage if possible. I'm going to drag that down and zoom in. Please yell out if you've had any problems at all. And I'm just checking around it to see if there's any holes, and I can spot one there already. You can see there. There's also one there, funnily enough, by the looks of it. So I'm going to use my robust smooth to resolve those issues. There's another one and another one there. So I'm going to go to my tool, put that in the middle there. I'm going to go to edit, sculpt, brushes, and robust smooth. That's a little bit big, the tool there. I might make it a little bit smaller, keep my strength about the same, and just hit that once, wherever you see a slight problem there. I don't like that bit there, so I'm just going to clean that up as well. And it's just a fraction of a kind of hit. I can scroll around with my right click here to zoom around as well. And it really doesn't matter whether there's an issue or not. You can go all the way around it anyway, just to make sure we catch everything. I'm going to go through the legs of the elephant there.
Yeah, and if you can slow down a little bit, I think participants would appreciate that. I've just had a comment on the chat, so yeah.
All I'm doing at the moment is using one tool to clean this up. I'd like to know where to go back to, if that's okay, to repeat any of them.
Okay, so due to the lag, the cut and fill went wrong for her.
Yeah. Okay, so there is another way that we can split our model, which I think we can do. That way that if it has worked, I find that if we're using a machine and there is an issue, that issue might just repeat itself each time. So what I'm going to do, I think, is delete this one and bring in the whole eagle again, but actually split it using a plane cut this time, which would work for you if you had a difficulty with this. So those of you who got to this far, you can leave it at this point if you like and just watch the next bit, or you can decide to have another go at a different way. But if you got this far, that's fine. You don't have to delete this. We can just hide it. Can you see it's got like a little eye next to it? You can just hit that and it disappears. You can bring it in and out. What I think we'll do then is I'm going to delete mine. I've actually got it highlighted at the moment, and I've got a little delete bin at the bottom there. So I'm going to left click on that and it'll disappear. At that point, I've still got my elephant there. I'm going to leave that live down the bottom there. And I'm going to start again, but I'm going to use a slightly different method of cutting. I'm going to go to File. I'm going to go to Import. Append, as we did before. And now I'm looking for the same file, which is our eagle. And this is an issue. I do appreciate this an issue, because if we had brought the eagle from Thingiverse, everybody's machine would have crashed by now. So it says it's larger than the rest. I'm going to ignore that. I'm just going to bring it in anyway. Now this time, I'm going to cut this using what's called a plane cut. I haven't done this for a while, but I think it's already kind of flat here. I want to make sure that I can cut straight down across the head. And I think we'll probably do that. That'll be okay. But before I do that, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to transform and move it slightly. So I'm going to hit Edit and Transform. This is the same tool we used earlier. And I'm just going to move it to one side. I'm not going to do too much with it because it's a massive file. It really is quite big. I'm just going to accept that to say that's done. Okay, now I'm going to actually cut it. I think it's in transform, so that's still open. And if you look about halfway down, we should find, there it is, just before halfway down, plane cut. I'm going to left click on it and wait. And what it's going to do is it's going to give me a plane. And at the moment, I can see that plane kind of cutting through the center of it. And the bottom half's invisible and the top half isn't. If I use my kind of rotation there to move, it's lagging terribly. But I can move that around about 90 degrees, roughly 90. Really doesn't matter. Everything below my plane is going to be deleted. Everything above the plane is still going to be left. And I'm going to move around now so I can see quite clearly what I'm doing. And you can see where that plane is. I can use the blue arrow now to move my plane up. And as I'm moving it up, it's showing me what's going to be left and what's going to be saved. Let's move around here. I can see the plane itself. It's not too bad that, but I might want to just rotate my plane, and I can do that really easily using this little kind of curve here. Can you see my plane will rotate as well? So I'm going to put it about there. And again, I'm going to use the blue one just to come out so that the top of the wing is taken off. And I'm going to just move around now so I can see what's happening. And you can see I've still got another part of it there. So I'm going to just move it up a little bit further. Using the blue one again, the blue arrow. Just bring it in. Oh, I haven't quite got it there. So there you go. Now I've got it. And take that out a little bit further. And then have a look around. And we can see now we've got our head. That's quite happy there. Like so. So if I just click accept, everything below that is going to be deleted. And everything above, because you can still see it in gray, is going to be kept. So I'm just going to hit accept. And there it is. And what we've got there is a perfect straight cut through the bottom. There shouldn't be any issues with it. But it's just an alternative if you've got difficulty with selecting, and if you've got difficulties with the thing not actually working, the processing being too difficult. This is a kind of a tool that is using less processing power than what we did before when it's trying to make the bulge and everything. We do have kind of these issues on the edge here, but I don't think there'll be anything major there if we look into it. At the moment, the elephant has gone live here, so I'm just going to click on the reduced eagle, and that's live again. And as I move around, I'm just checking. And we can use that same tool, by the way, you know, the kind of robust smooth I was talking about, just to kind of round these off, because we might find when we're putting it together now, this one, because I haven't managed to get a kind of kind of almost like pointed effect on it with the way that I've cut it. It might be a little bit difficult for us. So I might go to that that's robust smooth, just to smooth out the edges.
Yeah.
Well done, everyone. Hopefully we're all in the same place. I'm just going to minimize that, and we're back here now. So we can use a tool to round this off if we want to. And it probably is a good idea as well, because these sharp edges are going to be noticeable when we put it onto the elephant. So I'm just going to go to Edit, Then I'm going to go to, sorry, I should go to sculpt, sorry. Go to brushes. I'm going to use that really handy tool, that robust smooth. Click on there, and the circle could be a little bit bigger than that, the sphere. So the size I'm going to make slightly bigger, and I'm just going to move around. And as you can see, wherever I stop, it kind of rounds it up a little bit there. I'm going to go all the way around here. And I can kind of move around as well while we're at it, just to make sure that it's nice and smooth around. And again, a bit problematic with the base. You can see we don't really need to be seeing, to be watching everything as we're moving around there. It's just rounding everything up nicely there. So once we've done that, of course, really quite simple now, we're going to use our transform tools to move the head into position onto the elephant. And of course, when we do that, we've got to go to edit and transform. We're almost there with this. So all I'm going to do is just show, using those transform things that we've already looked at, that we can revolve our thing around so the head's going downwards if you want the head to be going down on the elephant. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so we can see them both. And I can see I've also got this one I can move around.
Yes.
So we can put it kind of anywhere, really. And as we move around, and kind of look on the top there, I can slide along this way, and I can move out as well. And you can see the head is too big. So all we've got to do there, if you remember, there's a kind of a cube in the middle. We can grab that cube and we can go one way to make it bigger and one way to make it smaller. So just try, I'm keeping my finger on my mouse, by the way, as I'm moving, so just try and see how that works. And I'm going to kind of get it roughly the size I want it to be. And when I've done that, I can use the arrows to put it in place. I'm going to move around as well, and I can see top to the bottom looks quite good. It's still a little bit big, perhaps, so I might scale it down just a touch. And that's actually moving. I missed the arrow there, the box. So I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller. About there. And then I can move it around. So there's lots of different tools here we can use to move about, to scale, and to nod the head up and down, like so. And I'm going to move in. This kind of plane cut isn't quite as good, I don't think, as the kind of cutting at an angle, because you can actually have, instead of a straight line, you can have it kind of coming down and back up again by drawing a point like a triangle as we cut it. However, I think that will probably do is, I might make it a little bit smaller so there's more kind of body of the elephant merging into it. So if I just kind of go to the kind of point there, the square in the middle, and kind of just make that a little bit smaller, and then move around again and position using the arrows. I'm just having a little play there. As I'm moving it around, I can see that the head there is going over one side more than the other. So now I'm going to do some small movements. And my movements are very, very fluid. Is anybody having a difficulty with it kind of jumping? Let me know if it is. If it's not that smooth, it'll be something to do with the, it says enable snapping down here. There's a box. And if that box is ticked on enable snapping, when we're trying to move, you get this kind of jump as it's moving. And I prefer to have that box taken off. The enable snapping, just left click so there's no tick there. And now I can smoothly move about and place it where I want it to be as we move around. The next thing I'm going to do is, I can see top to the bottom is fine, but it's peeking out that side there and also on the other side as well. So I'm going to use the box on the end of the green arrow to scale down, but only in one dimension, in one direction. So I'm going to left click on the box and move, and you can see I can slide out and in and I can just bring that in ever so slightly. I can move forwards and backwards again, so they merge in together a little bit more. And when I'm happy with that, okay, I can then decide that's what I'm going to go with. So I'm going to wait for just a second, just to make sure everyone's okay, and I'm going to accept my transform that I've just made. Just waiting for a second to make sure everyone's okay. And what we're going to do next, of course, is combine this into one object. At the moment, it's still two models. And if you send it to a 3D printer, it will have difficulty because there's the inside of one model poking through the inside of another model, let's say. And it's really simple the way that we join them into one. We've got our box down here, this browser. Just moved it slightly. And of course, if we've got one highlighted at the moment, we can highlight the elephant, or we can highlight the eagle head. If I use Shift on a PC and click the second one, I can highlight them both together, and immediately a box appears on the left-hand side. And one of the things, it says duplicate, transform, align, create pivot, and the fifth one down is combine. So I'm just going to left click on the word combine. And now what we have is just one file. So now, as we look at this, there's no longer the bulge that was poking through from the elephant body into the body of the eagle. Now we just have one. We can turn off and on there. And even though the skeletal kind of thing is showing them both, the actual model now doesn't have the two. It's actually one complete file. And we find that if we go into Cura to 3D print it. And I think at this point it might be worth me doing just that. I'm going to take my file. Because it's just the one, I can go down to the bottom here where it says export. You don't have to do this, but eventually, if you've completed a model and you're happy with it, go to export and save as an OBJ, which is a file format coming out of Meshmixer. That can be sent to a 3D printer. So there's no reason why you couldn't actually contact the Fab Lab, for instance, and pay for the service, let's say, to have this 3D printed. Did anyone have a question there?
Yeah, just a quick one from Catherine. So she did combine the elephant body, and it's now highlighted in blue for some reason.
Do you have one or two kind of files on the browser? This browser I'm moving.
Only one file.
Yeah, so it's combined. It has worked. I don't know why you've got a different color, but if you've got the one file there, then they have combined successfully.
So it's not a problem to have the elephant body in blue and the eagle heads.
No, no, because there are different ways that you can combine. And what I'm going to do now is prove that point. I think I'm going to put a hole in my elephant and then stitch the hole up. I'm going to go to select. I'm going to go to, you don't have to do this. Please don't do this, everyone, because it'll spoil your file. I'm going to select a bit of a hole there, and I'm going to delete it by mistake. So what I've got now is an issue. I'm going to kind of come in here, and I'm going to fix it. And I'm hoping what it's going to do is fix it in a different color, but it'll still be the same object, just to prove a point here. I'm going to make the size slightly smaller. And now each time I click, it should only click on the triangles around the edges, especially if I can kind of move in here. So I'm actually deciding to highlight all of these around the edge of my hole on the outside. And we know we've got that tool, haven't we, which is erase and fill. I can erase everything here and fill at the same time, repair the hole. So I'm going to do just that. Okay, and when I accept that, I'm wondering what's going to happen. And clear my selection. Oh no, it hasn't got a different color. But sometimes I find that with my model, it's got a different color in it. There's an issue that I've dealt with, and there's a new color that's been put into there. I'm not sure why it does that, but it's just telling me that that was the patch. It has no bearing whatsoever to the file when it goes to the 3D printer though. So basically, I think if you've got two different colors, as long as you've got one file in your browser, then it's a good file. It's a completed file. So I think what we'll do now is we'll export this. I'm going to hit export, and it saves as an OBJ there. I think you've got different options. You can save as STL as well, but OBJ is absolutely fine, which is the one that it prefers to be. And I'm going to call it Legal 2 and pop that onto my desktop. Okay, so now I can open my software for my 3D printer. Obviously you don't have to do this, but I just want to prove the point. Take a minute to open this up. And while it does, I'll just explain a few of the issues I've had downloading files from Thingiverse. The Eagle was a scan, and scanners actually scan very, very accurately, and the file size is huge. So when it comes into Meshmixer, as we've seen, it lags. It's really difficult to use something like that, which is why I chose the elephant. The elephant's a perfect kind of size model. I'm just going to change my printer to a different one. Setting printer. There you go. And what happens is it's too big to be able to work, and there's lots of glitches and all sorts. So we have to reduce the mesh. Some files, when they come in, aren't solids. They're just surfaces, and there are issues with them, and we can test that in a minute. And we can test Catherine's as well to see if there's any issues that need to be fixed. And so I'll show you how to fix those in a minute. But what we're going to do now is just prove that point and bring our Eagle 2 in. I'm just going to open my file. We're looking at our desktop, aren't we? And we're looking for Eagle 2. There. Might take a second to open. It should have the head of an eagle, which it does. I'm going to slice it. And I'll preview as well so that we can actually see that slice as we drop it down, just to see if it's actually one solid. There we go. So we've got a preview now with support material. And as I drop it down now here, I just want to get to the point where, as we can see, we've got the body of our elephant here. If I've done this wrong, there'll be a wall between the two. There'll be two meshing inside each other. If it's actually worked right, when you get to the point, you can see there's nothing between the head and the body. It's one complete file. So Meshmixer is brilliant for bringing in lots of different things, combining them into one perfect watertight model. Okay. So I'm going to close this down now, but this is just a kind of, you can see how we can save our file, anything we make, that can be sent to the Fab Lab. We can put it through this software, and you can download it yourself. It's called Cura. It's a free download. Bring it in and just hit slice, and it shows you how it's going to 3D print this object from the legs up with support material as well. Everything with crisscross is the support within the model, and there you have it. Just to prove that that will work. Okay, I'm going to close that up now unless there's any questions about Cura.
Don't think we've got any question on Cura, but going back to Meshmixer, we've got Catherine who would like to know, if you were to make a hole in the elephant body, can you see inside the sort of eagle cutoff or not? Would you be able to see that?
Probably, and I'm wondering whether you can just kind of zoom it into the thing itself and past the skin. I don't know if you can see inside, and I think you can a little bit there, perhaps. But let's just put a hole in it and see. I don't know is the answer. So I'm just going to select using a bigger size and put a big hole in here. I'll hit delete from my desktop there, and then go inside, and there you can see, yeah, I can see the join on the inside. You see there isn't anything in particular to be worried about on the inside. But I tell you what, when you do bring in, oh no, look, I can see the solid coming down there on the inside here. But it wasn't an issue on our 3D because this is no longer solid. The elephant part is no longer solid. When you make a hole, it actually now becomes a broken file. So the problem is, it's not easy to say, yes, that's what you can see and that's what's actually there, because when we fix that hole, the whole thing now becomes solid. So it's difficult to actually say, yeah, that's the reason why. Might put a hole in the top of that one as well, but it doesn't really tell us what we want to know. I'm just controlling Z back, because what tells me that this is one complete solid is the Cura file that then will split it all down, so I can see that it's just one skin all the way around. So that to me is the proof that it's worked. But what we can do, of course, is we can bring in a file and we can check for any problems. I think I'll probably do that from Thingiverse now. I'm going to show you two things. I'm going to bring in a file that might need fixing, and I'm going to show you a film of how to reduce the mesh. And the reason I'm showing the film is because if I bring in the eagle, for instance, and try and reduce the mesh, it'll crash my machine 3 or 4 times. It'll take forever, and we'll just be sitting watching the wheel go around. So I did this earlier on today and filmed myself doing it, so we can edit it and we can fast forward and so on. So hopefully, Catherine, that hasn't really answered a question, making a hole in it, because it now becomes not watertight. It becomes a series of surfaces and solids rather than one continuous solid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open a new file, but I think I'll probably go on to Thingiverse first, because this is what I want you guys to do for the rest of this session. We're a little bit behind, unfortunately. So what I want you to do is to go online and just grab something that you can merge perhaps with the elephant. And also, I did say that before we went any further, I was going to show you, if you can't get to this stage, how to combine two things. So very, very quickly, I'm actually going to start a new file. I think we can open. Oh no, actually I'm going to close that. I might actually just shut down mine. I'm just thinking best way of doing this. I'm going to shut down completely. You can save a file, by the way. This file can be saved on the desktop. I'm going to go to File and Save As, and instead of exporting where we're saving our STL file, we can save this Meshmixer file. So I'm going to call it LE Eagle 2 again, and now I'm actually saving the Meshmixer file, so I can come back to this later. I don't lose it. I'm going to make sure it's on the desktop and hit save. And now that's saved, I'm going to close this down and start a new file. So there's my LE Eagle 2 as a Meshmixer file. I'm going to start Meshmixer up again from scratch. Okay. And I'm actually going to go to Meshmix over here. It's the second one down from import. So we can import things, or we can make standard. Nothing's actually happening there. Okay, let's see what we can import spheres here. We can open. I'm used to actually having the tools here to be able to bring in objects. So perhaps I'm going to import the sphere to start with. So we've got a sphere there. And I think we can probably now import other objects to it. Let's go to Meshmix, and there we have it. We've got lots of different things we can import again. So I'm simply going to choose one of these shapes, and when we actually make them, we'll probably have functionality to make them smaller and bigger. I've never done this before, but I just want to prove the point that we can combine two things. If it hasn't worked with our models, this is the simplest way to show that we can combine two things. So I'm just going to go for the cone, let's say. I'm not sure if I have to drag that on. It looks like it. Yeah, I have to drag it on in positioning. And now we do exactly the same as we did before. I'm going to lift up. I'm going to move across. I'm going to move it over the sphere until they're combined. And I'm going to use my tool to make it bigger and smaller.
Lift it up, I think, yeah.
And I can move inside and out just to make sure it's on there. I can move around to my heart's content there. And it doesn't matter what form we use, I'm just grabbing two forms basically. Okay. If I accept that, what I don't have is the dialog box. I've never done this before, so I'm going to bring in another object as well. I'm going to go to Meshmix, and I'm going to get another sphere. I'm going to bring that in. Okay, and when I move that, I think actually with Meshmixer, I have to say that we don't have to combine these. I was hoping that we'll get the same combine tool, but I don't think we need to. I think with this software, because it's designed within Meshmixer itself, it's already combined into one object. I'm going to accept that. And if I export this, this will be exported as one thing. And I've noticed this with other mesh programs as well. There is no combine unless you've actually imported different things, such as our head and our elephant and the wings that we had on the demonstration as well. So I might actually bring the wings in to here. This is just a demonstration, by the way, at the moment. I'm going to import, and you can do this yourself. You can bring the wings in, or you can bring the wings into your elephant eagle. Import and append. So it means I'm bringing them again. And now I'm actually going to bring something else from outside of Meshmixer. I'm going to go for the wings and open. And there they are. Now, all of a sudden, I have my browser with the different objects in them as well. It's quite interesting that it doesn't appear until I brought that in. Now, I'm sure within Meshmixer, that browser, you can probably just find the browser somewhere. I haven't done that before, but we can probably look into that. How you can just bring the browser up. It's probably just Control and B or something like that. But I'm actually going to select the wings and go to Edit. There's a fair bit I don't understand myself about Meshmixer. I've not used it that much myself, so I'm kind of learning myself as well as we go on. I'm going to go to Transform within Edit there, and I'm just going to move those around a bit so that I'm happy with where they are. So have a quick peek at them. And now I can simply, once they're there, combine that with the sphere. So I've got my wings at the moment. I've got my other mesh files as well. So perhaps what I'll do is I'll actually combine the whole thing. Shift, everything's there, and hit combine there. And now what we have is one complete object there, which is combined. Now that was different from what I was expecting. I've never actually used the models from Meshmixer itself before, but certainly there's also lots and lots of how-to films about Meshmixer, how to do this, how to, if you ever get stuck, there's the films that we've got here, but there's also just type in, how do you combine in Meshmixer, or how do you open the browser in Meshmixer, and that'll come out as well. So that was just an aside, really, just to kind of prove a point there. What we think we need to do now is have a little bit of an explanation of what to do if the file is too big. So I'm going to open up a film, which I did earlier, and start this, and I'm going to whiz through it and stop it every now and then because it takes too long. So when we actually import a file and it's too big, so I'm going to import a very large file. And you can see it's I'm just pausing it there because it takes ages, because this is the eagle before I actually reduced it. The one you've got has already been reduced by 50%. So you can imagine how long it's going to take to do that. So I'm just going to carry on and whiz through until the eagle is there. And I'll just carry on a little bit more. Select all of this. So select here, and then Control and A should be select all, and nothing happens, so you have to wait. And there it is, and that's the last. So if you notice, that was select, and A is select all. So you go to select as you normally would, and press Control, and A, or Command and A, and that will select everything. And then you carry on. I'm going to whiz through again. A little bit. I'm talking about it's a real problem. So once I've done that, I want to reduce the amount of triangles within it, so simplify it. And I think the first time I do it, it'll automatically reduce to 50%. So I'm going to go to Edit and down to Reduce here, and you can see Shift and R does the same thing. And again, it's going to take some time for something to actually happen. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to whiz through while it's actually computing. And the reason why I'm filming this and not trying to do it live is because my machine crashed 3 times when I tried to do it. And I think it would just be too much for us to sit and wait for anything. And I can accept that. So I'm going to left click on it. And again, we'll have to wait for that to respond. Pause there. And essentially what we've done there is we've reduced the size of that file. And this film we can send to you as well on how to do that. It's still lagging even after we've reduced it 50%, but the point is you can repeat this a number of times. You can do 50% and 50% and 50%, and weirdly you don't see a difference in the outside. It's because the scanned file is so huge that you can reduce by 95% and you won't see the difference between the reduced file and the scanned file that is too big. And that's because there's just far too much information within the scanned file. So that's one thing we can do. The other thing we can do, we can bring something in and test. I'm going to close this down now. And again, this film I'll actually share with Ellie and she can post it out to you. It worked quite well, this, because it was the second time I did it. But it did take probably an hour for me to sort that issue out. I'm actually going to go back to Thingiverse now. And this is so that any of us can just pick things out. I'm just going to double check if I am actually back here. That's great. Go back to Thingiverse. And what I'm looking for now is if I go back and go to a new search, and this time I'm going to search for something I know is an issue. I'm going to put Statue of Liberty. There. And here we go. And I'm looking for a model that I can use. I'll probably just collect the first thing, I think. I don't know if I'm going to have issues or not, but I did have an issue with one. I think it was this second one here. So I'm going to click on that and I'm going to download it. Download all files. And I should now get a zip file appear, and there it is, Statue of Liberty. I'm going to drag that over onto my desktop and then open that up. And there is my Statue of Liberty. If I open that up, inside is the file. I'm going to drag that onto my desktop as well. You don't have to, but I just like to see where it is. I have to have a bit of a tidy up at the end of the day, of course. And let's just reduce those and just check the Statue of Liberty is there. That's great. So go into Meshmixer now, and I can go to File. I can go to Import, and I'm just going to replace now. I'm not going to bring it in and append. I'm just going to replace in this state. Look for my Statue of Liberty. And there it is. And open it. And there it is. And it looks quite good, actually. Doesn't look to be any major problems with it. But when we bring something from Thingiverse, the first thing we want to do is check if there's any problems. And sometimes there are a world of problems. There are so many problems, it's unbelievable. Trying to remove the head is impossible because it's not a watertight model to start with. So what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to go to Analysis. There's another kind of really important icon down here, which is Analysis. I'm going to left click on that. And the very top one is Inspector. So I'm going to left click on Inspector. And you can see where the problems with this model are. There's a whole load of issues with that part there. There's an issue with the whole part of this part here. There's loads of issues at the bottom as well. And this has to be resolved. And there is, when we open this up, a kind of auto repair all here. If you've got a really large file with lots of problems, when you hit auto repair all, the whole thing crashes because it's trying to do too much. But I'm going to hit auto repair all there. And you can see all of a sudden, half of it disappears. I'm going to say done. And I'm going to go in now, and you can see that a lot of what was there is no longer there. Now, the reason for that is whenever this has been constructed, it's not been constructed as a watertight model. There are surfaces there that aren't actually joined, not enough to be 3D printed anyway. But we know we can probably sculpt things into this ourselves, so we can actually add things to it as well. So hopefully now this has now been fixed, but I don't know whether it's a solid or not. So I'm actually going to just double check and do a little bit of extra work on this. I'm going to make it into a solid. So what we've just done is an analysis of any faults, and we've automatically repaired those faults. Within Edit, if we go to it here, there's another thing we can do, which is Make Solid. So I'm going to left click on Make Solid. And this is an issue with an awful lot of models that we bring in from Thingiverse. They're not solids, they can't be 3D printed. But look what's happened to our detail. The whole thing has become problematic. So if I try to remove the head on this model, it wouldn't work because it's not a watertight model. So the functionality is lost. But our accuracy at the moment on our solid accuracy, as you see, is very low. This makes solid thing that's come out. And what tends to happen is Meshmixer does the job and then gives you the opportunity to change situations. So there's accuracy. I can slide all the way up to full and then try and update that and see what happens. Nothing's actually going to appear until I left click for some reason. I don't know why. It's a bit glitchy, but there you have it. And then we've got a slightly better version of the same thing, like so. So what I can do now is perhaps have another look at the mesh densities. I can move that slightly. Look at the kind of solid type. It's fast. We should be able to change that, and I'm not able to do that at the moment, but it should be possible to change from fast to more accurate and that kind of thing. So basically what I've done now is I brought that in, and I think I've got an issue with that. I'm not very happy with it. So what I'll probably do is go back to Thingiverse and choose a different Statue of Liberty, one that maybe would have been put together slightly better, and one that I can actually use. So this has given you hopefully the tools you need to go through Thingiverse, bring them in. If you're not happy with what you've got there, then maybe bring another file in. Let's just have a quick peek on that and see if we can remove the head. Should be fairly quick to be able to do. And if it doesn't work, well, obviously it's connected to the arm as well there, which is a little bit of a problem. So I might actually go with a second one. I'm going to go back into my desktop. I'm going to take my Statue of Liberty and I'm going to chuck that in the bin. Same thing with this one here, Statue of Liberty. Chuck it in the bin. Go back into Thingiverse and go back. This time I'm going to choose the one on the plinth here and see if that's any better. Statue of Liberty, download files. Sometimes it's the same file actually, but they've just somebody's put an extra bit on the bottom. So just the fact that they're there doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be useful to us. So it might be a case of going through 2 or 3 of them to select the best one. So I'm just going to grab my Statue of Liberty there, drag that over, open it up, get the file, and we've got all sorts of different things. We've got the building, we've got the statue, and then we've got this one that says Liberty 2 fixed. So that to me means I'm going to grab that one, Liberty 2 fixed. Means like somebody might have actually had a problem with one. I'm going to bring that one in to Meshmixer, File, Import. I'm going to replace what I have. and look for Liberty 2 fixed. And there it is. Open that up. And there it is. And it may be that somebody's had the same issue and has fixed all the problems. So I'm going to go to analysis and have a look at that. Yep, and there's nothing. There are no kind of problems there for analysis. So I suspect that this one we can use. I'm going to go to edit and transform. And it's going to close. Okay. Close that down. Meshmixer's just crashed. So you can see the issue that we have when we're kind of working with different files. So hopefully I've shown you the problems that we have and also how to go about it. Just go to auto repair them, to reduce our mesh, and you should have the information from this recording and from the film we can send you, and just choose a different file, okay, to be able to do it. I've still got that Statue of Liberty, so I'm going to open Meshmixer from scratch, because I've also had like numerous different files on there as well. I don't want to restore anything. I'll just start from scratch and I'll import the same file, and we'll see if we have the same problem. If it is fixed, it might actually be okay. So Liberty 2 fixed, and open. There it is. I go to transform, edit, transform, and move our object up. And this actually seems quite happy. I'm going to kind of drag down here, zoom in, and let's see if there were no issues. I think this is the same file as we were just using, to be honest, but somebody's actually fixed the problems and then added all of this part as well. Let's just see if the head will come off, but I think we're running out of time. So what I was hoping is that we would have time at the end of this for you guys to bring something else in, or to bring two models in and combine them. So what I'm going to ask you to do with just a few minutes left is see if you can actually download something to join with the elephant. I know we haven't got much time at all, but try and go for something quite simple, or just bring in an object to go alongside the elephants. Just bring in a cube or something like that and stick them together. But it's really kind of having the functionality, having the knowledge of being able to combine two things together that can then go to a 3D printer. And as far as I'm concerned, once you've got that simple kind of grasp of two objects combined into one, then the possibilities of what we can do with this are tremendous. So I'm going to shut up for a minute. I've only got about 10 minutes or so, but just see if you can grab something from Thingiverse, or just use the wings, for instance, that we've already supplied to you. Just bring them in and put them together in a different way. I'm going to give you 10 minutes to just have a quick play now, if that's okay. If you've got any questions, just yell out. While that's happening, I'm actually going to see if I can remove the head of the Statue of Liberty here.
Ian, we've got a question from Farah, who just downloaded Meshmixer, and she was wondering if you could show us really briefly how you added that initial bunny at the very beginning and then moving along around the grid as well.
Yeah, I'm going to close this down completely. And I'm just going to go to Meshmixer and double click on it so it opens exactly as anybody would see it. I'm going to just make sure it's filling the whole screen there. And this is what we get with Meshmixer. And immediately you can see 6 boxes in the middle. And the one on the left bottom actually has the picture of a bunny on it. So all you've got to do is click that once and import bunny. And I think really I was asking people to go on to Thingiverse and to download lots of things and put them together. We don't really have time for that. So what we can do is simply download the wings at the same time, and we can give our bunny rabbit wings, which is fair enough because we removed its head earlier. At least we can give it some wings. So that's another option of what we can do with the remainder of the time. So there's our bunny rabbit. If we want to bring the wings in as well, we can go to File and we can go to import, and we can append rather than replace, and go and search for another object. And it could be anything, something we brought from Thingiverse, something we created ourselves in Fusion, but I'm going to go for the wings and open, and they should appear next to my bunny rabbit. Okay. Now the wings are live and the rabbit isn't. You can see the rabbit's in shade and the wings are live there, because you can see there's this color, not color, but light on them, let's say. And I can swap to the bunny. I can swap back to the wings. I think the best thing to do now is hit transform in edit to be able to move these wings about and make them bigger. So I'm going to do just that. I'm going to go to edit and transform. There. Now, as I move around, I can quite simply move the browser to one side. I've just left clicked and dragged there. I know I'm going to have to move these and rotate them. And I can rotate by going to the top now and rotate around this way. I can drag and drag. I'm going to have to rotate round as well because they're kind of upright at the moment. So I need to rotate this way. And I can go and put them wherever I like. I think I'd like to put them a little bit further forward, perhaps. I'd like to make them bigger. I'd really like them to be huge wings. So I'm going to scroll out so that I can see. And I'm going to go to the little box, the white box in the middle, and that's actually moving by the looks of it. Yeah, so I'm going to go to make sure I do get the box. That seems to be dragging forwards and backwards. So I just want a better position there. There you go. And as I'm moving out, it's getting a bit bigger. I'm going to come back and drag it a second time. A little bit tricky to grab that. I want the wings to be quite big. Okay. So I'm going to take it up just a little bit now and bring it back down. So I know they're kind of in the whole thing there. And the ears a little bit difficult there, so I might slide them back a bit so the ear's not connected.
Ian, another question here.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a mouse and you've got a trackpad, how would you drag and move around the bunny?
I have no idea is the answer to that, because I don't know if we actually had a kind of a kind of discussion about trackpads and so on, but whenever we do Fusion, we always ask people to use a mouse if possible rather than a trackpad. I'm going to try now. I have no idea how I'm going to attempt it, because I'm going to have to select the arrow. And what I'm going to do with my trackpad, I'm going to left click on my trackpad and move, and there it is moving up and down with that. I'm going to move around, probably using the box here. I'm going to right click and drag, and that's working quite nicely. And then I'm going to kind of move around on the green one. I'm going to left click and drag, and I can move that forwards and backwards again. So yeah, I can do this, but I hate it. I really don't like it. Let's see if we can make it bigger and smaller. I'm going to hover over the white, left click and drag, and that will make it bigger and smaller. So all the functionality is there on the trackpad, but it doesn't feel particularly easy, let's say. Let's just kind of go to that rotate there. And again, I'm making sure that I'm on a PC, that I'm actually left clicking of because the trackpad's split into two, isn't it? You've got a left click and a right click with a PC. I'm not sure if that's the same with a Mac, but certainly I can move around. If I right click and move, there, that's better. I can actually hit the right part of the track and then just use my finger to move around to do that. So I'm kind of getting used to it now. I'm kind of figuring it out, but it's not easy, I've got to say. I much prefer to use a mouse. So I'm going to go back to my mouse now, and I'm going to make that a little bit bigger. Okay, so hopefully that's answered the question. What I'm going to do now, of course, is combine the two and make my bunny with the wings into one object. So at the moment, the wings are live. You can see in the browser, I'm going to left click on the bunny, so the bunny's live. Now I'm going to press Shift and hit the wings so they're both together. And then I'm going to have a look at the box at the top here. And the fifth one down is combined. I'm going to left click on that. And now we have one combined file completed, which we can now take out and export. So it's really important that we know how to export. I did it once before, but I'm going to do it again. I'm going to go to export and left click. I'm going to call it bunny with wings. Okay. And I'm going to put that onto my desktop by saving. Hit save, and there you have it. So we don't necessarily have to use the bunny and the wings and things that we've supplied. You should have enough information to actually make things solid or to fix problems as they come in. It takes time though. So that's something we can't really do in this session because we may spend 40 minutes trying to make a file correct. The elephant came in straight away. So you'll find that certain files are perfect. And I think the best thing I can suggest is we have a look in a second on our file sizes when we're looking at it. So I'm going to, I've just saved this and we know that can go to a 3D printer. So I think what I'm going to do is quickly, this is very messy because my desktop is all over the place. Just have a look at the wings. I'm going to right click on this and go to properties and we can see the size. The size is 9.12 MB. Okay. Now I'm going to have and we know that's good. It came in quite easy. Let's have a look at the elephant and look at properties there. And this one is 2.55, which is why I love the elephant. It's tiny in comparison to sizes. Now, if you have a look at the eagle, just remember that was 2.55. I'm going to click OK there. Have a look at the eagle. Where is our eagle? It's around here. And that's a reduced mesh eagle here. This one here. So I've already halved it. Let's just, it's 54.9 MB. By the way, to find out, I'm just right clicking on it and this appears, and then I go down to properties and left click. And now you can see 54.9 megabytes. My goodness, that's big. And that's why, and don't forget, it was twice the size when I actually brought it in from Thingiverse. So we can very quickly, once we get it onto our desktop here, just have a quick look at the size. And maybe on Thingiverse itself, when we have a look at there may be some information there about sizes before we download. But, you know, we can just have a quick look at that. So 54.9 megabytes as opposed to our elephant. Right click, properties, 2.55. So that's the kind of thing that will tell us immediately whether we're going to have problems when we're combining things and putting things together. Incidentally, the bunny rabbit will be about 1. You can see it's low res because there's not that much detail in it. Okay, so I'm going to click OK there, and now I'm going to come back to the stop sharing.